You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.
Time to sharpen those swords. You're listening to Sabres Semantics, a hard-hitting interview and discussion show featuring players, alumni, media, and all others who cover the NHL's Buffalo Sabres. With interesting stories from the past and current objective analysis, this show is sure to provide an entertaining and unique perspective for both Sabres and hockey fans alike.
Oh, brother, we are not worthy!
Exclusively on the Armchair GM Sports Network.
And welcome into another episode of Sabres Semantics right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Thank you to everybody that's tuned in on our video version on YouTube. Make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, smash that bell, and also give us a comment as well. We'd love to hear from you guys when we record our shows. Your fan thoughts on our episodes is always encouraged on our side of things. And thank you to those that are listening in your favorite on-demand audio platform. To our audio peeps out there, thank you for your continued support. Brandon Caputo joined alongside Joe Yerdon of Noted Hockey and Bleacher Report to give us a quick update on the Buffalo Sabres so far here in the month of December. Again, 3 months into the season, and again, things for the Sabres. I don't know what we're gonna get Joe's insights there from what's going on, the pulse down there in Buffalo at KeyBank Center. Make sure you give us a follow on X at Sabres Semantics, as well as on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok by searching the Armchair GM Sports Network for all of our short reels and content. Joe, thanks a lot for joining us again today. I think the last time you had talked to us here on the show, it was right before the Sabres were going out to Utah and Colorado. So it's been it's about a month or so. And again, 2-game losing streak right now, lost 4 of the last 6. Obviously some positivity with the way Josh Norris has played this week and his return. We'll talk about that a little bit, but just general thoughts here as we look at where the Sabres are in the standings once again.
Yeah, it's their lack of luck and lack of solid play on the road is starting to haunt them a bit here. As they're 2-8-2 on the road. Have yet to win in regulation on the road. Haven't won in regulation on the road since last season, obviously. Since April 1st, I believe was the date. Yeah.
That's a stat.
That is a stat. That is true. It's so tough with them because the record doesn't tell us this, even though the East is a total schmoz right now. Like the East is a mess. Like they're 7 out of the wild card as we speak right now, but like they're 5 out of 3rd place in the Atlantic. So, you know, there's room to be had if they can catch a heater and get right into the mix of this. But, you know, as of right now, they're tied for last in the Eastern Conference with Florida, but you know, Florida's getting Matthew Tkachuk back eventually here. There's no way the Panthers are going to sit quiet for the entire season and not try to get back into it. But this has been their battle this year, is that, you know, they win a couple games in a row and you're like, all right, maybe they've made the turn, and then they lose 2 or 3 in a row. And it's very similar to how things have gone the past couple of years, where it's like, okay, maybe they got things figured out. Maybe this is where things turn around, and can't keep it together, and they can't keep the good momentum rolling. Crazy part is this team's really good at 5-on-5. It's elsewhere that they struggle with. You know, the PK has been very good all year, but you know it's not going to stay that good all year. At least you don't think it's going to. And the power play is still very average, very inefficient, ineffective. So you want to see that get better, but you know it's tough. And the goaltending, you know, listen, 3 goalies is not great for anybody, and it's not great for 3 guys that are trying to each grab the net and trying to get hot and stay with it. And you know, it's different things. A lot of this is a lot of shooting themselves in the foot, and a lot of it is just, you know, just not staying on top of the game. So that's a long way of saying this has been very similar to how it's been the last few years for the Sabres.
Yeah, and when you look at it, I mean, one of their most recent games was against Philadelphia, who is currently right now in a wild card spot. You looked at it, if the Sabres would have won that game, they're 2 or 3 points behind Philadelphia for a wild card spot. As crazy as that sounds, considering how, you know, the Sabres road record has been horrible this year.
Mm-hmm.
That they were that close to a wild card spot. As you mentioned, the East is just a mess right now with some of the teams that we would expect to be at the top or not, and teams that we didn't expect to be, at least in the top 3 in the Atlantic or the Metro, are there that we would not expect, like Pittsburgh or Montreal or even Boston to a certain extent, and the teams like Florida, Toronto, even Ottawa, you expected to take a step, and they're near the bottom as well. So it's, you got 4 Atlantic teams at the bottom of the East right now, which is wild to think about. But the Sabres, if they would have picked up a couple of points they're not losing 4 of 6, like you could have seen a pathway where they're 3 points out of a wild card spot right now. But again, we're here sitting on December 6th talking about, can they stay alive by the end of December again? And again, I know nobody wants to hear about that, but when you're going through a 14-year playoff drought and you're wondering if you're still going to be in it by the time the calendar turns to 2026, that's not exactly what you expected from this team going in.
No. And, you look at the road record. I mean, 2-8-2 is putrid, and it's a putrid road record. It's the worst road record in the league by far, which is wild because you look around the league and you've got some teams that are just not playing very good hockey right now, like Vancouver, Calgary, a couple of teams that are playing very soon here, Nashville. These teams all have better records on the road than the Sabres do, which is insane. It's crazy. And this is very much like last season where, last season we were saying if the power play pulls its weight just a little bit, they're probably in a better spot. If they don't lose 13 games in a row, if you go 500 in that time, they're right in the wild card race. Right now, you're looking at this 2-8-2 on the road. I mean, that's 6 points out of quick math, 6 points out of a possible 24. That ain't doing it. That is not doing it. That is a 25% point percentage. And if you're doing that on the road, you're done. Like your season's done. Forget it. Pack it in. Get ready for the lottery. That needs to get fixed. That has to get turned around. And, they've got 4 more games on this road trip. It's tough. It's very tough. And like when you're starting out like this, it's in your head at this point. And for this group, it's a lot of it is very self-inflicted. I mean, you look at, the things that went wrong in the game in Winnipeg, it's Alex Tuck with a turnover, a bad turnover. It's a bad line change. It's little, it seems like microaggressions, but they turn into macroaggressions immediately against their own team because, you can survive a mistake. You can survive like a turnover, but when it turns into a 2-on-0, a breakaway for Tanner Pearson, well, good luck. Like that, you might not get that one back. When it's a play where, one of your forwards is just diving to try to swat the puck away because, jailbreak at the bench, that's, you're kind of stuck in that spot and you're forcing your goalie to have to get maybe too aggressive in a short amount of time. And, and that's just one game. That's just the Winnipeg game. And, never mind some of these other road losses. The Philly game, I mean, the Philly game was a lot of things they did wrong, but a lot of things that they were victims of too. So, I mean, it's the kind of thing where, you can see a way out for this group, but you wonder if they can find that way out. I think that's the issue. That sounds profound. It's really not. But they've got a -12 goal differential. That's tied for the worst in the East with Detroit. And -12. I mean, tons of teams in the West are double figure minus in the West, but they're competing with the East. And if they can take some chunks out of these teams in the West, teams that are going through it, they've already shown they can do it to Edmonton. They've got to get it back against Calgary. Vancouver's the team that they can beat. Seattle, Seattle's going to be a grind game, but this is a thing that could turn around really quick, but you have to wonder if they can get it out of their heads or get it out of their system to do it.
And it just seems like, as you mentioned, like just segments of games, right? Like Philadelphia, you give up 3 goals in a minute. And again, I know they're questionable some calls on those power plays that Philadelphia was getting. And then, in the Winnipeg game, it's 1-1 game. And then all of a sudden Winnipeg just, takes over. And I look at these games and like, you look at the whole 60-minute effort, Joe, and it's just, to me, I have not seen a 60-minute team more times than not this season from these guys. And we're going to get into some of the statistics that you want to discuss and things like that. But, even like they talk about last night, like they posted the article, Sabres demand more of themselves after loss to Jets. Like, Lindy Ruff, I feel like, comes out and talks about a lot of the same things where they shoot themselves in the foot for, cute plays or bad defensive zone lapses that cost them. Like, I feel like I can listen to most Lindy Ruff post games and come up with some of the pretty much 40 to 50% of what he says is going to be the same thing that he said the last game. So
yeah, you kind of hope for a game that gets decided by something completely different, just so you can say like, well, what's he going to say about this one? You're rooting for like a different way for it to come apart, because at least then it's something different. If it's the same thing every time, then it's, you like to think that practice can boil that stuff out, or just this sheer experience of being like, hey, we got to stop doing this every game, would force guys to kind of change things up or do things the way that they're meant to be done.
Yeah. And I just like, I look at the way that this team, again, like we beat a dead horse here when we talk about it, but it's just, when you've gone through this for so long, and the pressure mounts, right? And the pressure on the coaching staff, the pressure on the management, the pressure on the players. You've got some big contracts coming up at the end of the year as well, Joe. Like, it just seems like every loss with this team is magnified times 100 because of this, of where they've been, where they're at currently, and where people expect them to be with the talent that they have. Like, we even hear about it on the national broadcasts during the intermissions and things like that, where they're like, this team has way too much talent to not be a playoff team. And, all these things, and what's going on in Buffalo, and they get analyzed, and scrutinized a lot on the national broadcast when they say that they have all this talent. But I just feel like with this team, any little negative, really opens up a wider hole than maybe some other teams would.
Yeah. And it's, you mentioned big contracts coming up, and, with Alex Tuch's situation, it's, it's one that I think ideally wanted to have settled before the season and have that out of the way and taken care of, so that it's not hanging over you. And, like a sword of Damocles, that like once the season gets too far beyond the reach, then it's like, okay, well, where are they trading him? What are you getting in return? I think with Alex, it's a heavier thing, because, it's the classic Kevin Adams, I only want guys that want to be here. Well, the guy from Syracuse wants to be here, and it's a matter of figuring out the money and all that stuff, and just getting it taken care of. And, it got a lot harder after, some of these other guys have signed their contracts, Adrian Kempe and players like that, where, it's kind of set the bar. And now it's like, well, you got to pay a 30-year-old Tuch, $10, $11, $12 million a year for X number of years. Like, is that something you're comfortable with doing? And that's a question they had to be asking themselves in the off season to begin with. Although they were probably thinking, well, maybe $9 million a year, that'd be a good way to settle in. That's probably where we're looking to end up. And now that's not where that's going to end up. That's just where it's going to, that would be an ultimate hometown discount if Alex took that, but I don't see that happening right now. But if he goes, you then have to wonder, well, what's the effect on the rest of the roster? How many other guys are going to be like, well, forget it. We're not sticking around for this. Like, that's the question you have to ask, because it's what's already happened here before, like that we've seen these things play out. So, it's a matter of getting this thing turned around for everybody to make the playoffs, obviously, but also, like, if you want this group to stick together, if if these guys really do enjoy playing together and all that, well, you better get it figured out, because, if it's not the GM or the coach that are going anywhere, it's going to be players, or it's going to be all three. And then, then we're talking about, 20 years without playoffs at that point. So, maybe, I don't know. Some teams seem to figure out how to get a rebuild done and taken care of in 3 years, but, But that's, these are the hard things you're staring at in the face right now if you don't get it turned around right now. That to me is the hardest part, because these guys hate going through this every year. Well, if you want to avoid it, figure it out. That's pretty much where it comes down to.
And, I know they don't want to make changes again because they've made so many changes over the last 14 years. But at the same time, you don't, like you said, you don't want it leaving to 20 and you having to restart the roster again because you have to trade away an entire core like they've already done during this 14-year rebuild, if you want to call it that.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, again, like I get the frustration of wanting the change, but again, it has to be a change in the right direction. They can't just go backwards again for 5 years.
Yeah. And, the one thing the national people do have right, there is way too much talent on this roster to be scuffling the way that they are. Now, you could chalk it up to being like, well, it's the first quarter of the season. Maybe once they get hot, they'll stay hot, maybe. I mean, but we haven't really seen that. This franchise get hot and stay hot since 2018, 19, where they won 10 in a row. And like, even then that team went from being like top in the league to out of the playoffs in 2 months. So, like that's the kind of thing you're dealing with. And, that maybe that's like, fan bitterness that comes through and saying, pointing these things out. But, I'm not a Sabres fan, but like, when you go through it, you're covering it, you're right down in the front of it. You're just kind of like, well, we've seen this before. You've seen just about everything before, but, which is
13-game losing streak.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Well, 18-game losing streak if you want to go back to the COVID season, when Ralph Kruger was fired and Don Granato was hired. Like that was 17, 18 games. So we've seen everything. We've seen it all, man. But if you want this thing to get turned around, there are little areas where it can improve. The power play is certainly one. If the power play gets going and clicks and scores all the time, great. Like that's a huge help, because it'll help balance things out when the PK cools off, because it's going to. Like if it stays great all season, I think that's an incredible feat of accomplishment for Lindy Ruff and Marty Wolford. That would be awesome. But you have to assume it's going to cool off. And we've seen some cracks here and there, but it's still been good. But if that gets fixed, the goaltending gets steady, which is hard to do with 3 guys. That changes things up. And, just stay strong at 5-on-5, because they have been. They've been really good at 5-on-5. And, if they could play every game without any penalties on either side, I think the Sabres would be happier than anything to have that happen. But that's just saying, that is also not how the game is played.
No. And yeah, I mean, I'm going to move on here, Joe, because I don't want to continue just to stay on that point, but I could go on and on about that. But want to get your quick thoughts on the updated injury report for you guys watching on video. You can see it on the screen, but for you listening in audio, Joe, Tyson Kozak still not ready to return to the lineup. Kesselring's not on the trip. Yuri Kulich, Justin Danforth. The Sabres provide a little bit of an update there, but what can you tell us about the latest report there?
Yeah, Michael Kesselring, I think once the team gets back home, he'll probably be closer to returning, I would imagine. He is skating on his own, which is a good sign, but he's not practicing with the team, and he's not on the road trip, so it'll be at least a couple more weeks there. Lindy Ruff was very quick to say he's not close before they left town on the trip, so take that as it's worth there, because I think he would know best. But yeah, if he was going on the trip, that would have meant that he would probably be practicing with him, and then maybe a return would happen. But I'd say maybe not. I say when they get back, we're talking like a week till Christmas, so maybe not till after Christmas. We'll see what happens there. But it would be good to get him back in. That'd be a huge help. Tyson Kozak. Probably just like a very day-to-day kind of thing with him. Now with Norris back, I think that kind of shrinks the lineup down a little bit for him. But if he gets back in the lineup, who you take out is going to be the big question. I know they've been kind of spot starting Jordan Greenway, just kind of helping him come back, because he had a couple of different, I think it was like, mid-body surgeries, like hernia type stuff in the off season that was that really saps your energy to try to get past that stuff. So I think they're just trying to manage him better and get him going. But if Kozak's going to get back in, maybe it's Greenway who pops out to give him a break. Maybe in the back, they got a back-to-back, I think, coming up soon. Maybe I'm forgetting the schedule here, but
okay.
But yeah, maybe you get Kozak back in there. Maybe he comes in for Ostlund, but I think Ostlund's played really well. I think it would be a mistake to get him out of the lineup. I think he's played very good given the role that he's in, and that line that he's with now with Tuck and Doan. That's a perfect setup for me. But we'll see where things go, because if things keep getting a little bit hairier with the results, then maybe some drastic changes. We might see some drastic changes as it is. Lindy seemed to be talking about that a little bit after the loss of Winnipeg. So we'll see if the top 6 gets tossed around a bit there. And Justin Danforth, I think it's still going to be a ways for him. Seen him around the rink recently, but he's got a big brace on his leg, so I can't imagine we're going to see him anytime soon. But yeah, I know a lot of fans forgot that they even signed him in the offseason because he was here and then he was injured very badly right away.
Yuri Kulich, anything on him?
And with Yuri, the blood clot that he's dealing with is I wouldn't even be thinking about Yuri Kulich too much right now until he's like back with teams, team practicing and all that. I know he's going to try to do his best because I think he wants to be ready for the Olympics, because I imagine he'd be on the Czechia roster at the Olympics. But a blood clot is out of your control. Like you can do as much as you can to try to treat it and make sure it's right, but those things are finicky and they take time. So, whatever treatments he's getting, it's going to be, it really depends on how that goes. So he's on a timetable, but like it's an unknown timetable, I guess, which isn't much of a timetable.
Right. I mean, hey, that's what you've been given is all you've been given. Right. And, with those, as you mentioned, like, it's not like something where, a leg injury, okay, this is going to take this amount of time, like that, something like that, or a concussion, like there is really no given timeline on you'll be back by X amount of days.
Right. And, he's with the team, he's hanging around the team, when they're at home, and, I think he's doing like workouts he's allowed to do, but I imagine it's nothing strenuous, or even if it's a workout at all, like guys just want to be around the team. So, but you feel for him, because this is going to be a big year for him. And, having something like this happen, obviously it was affecting his play on the ice before it was discovered. And now it's, put like an indefinite pause on where he gets to go from here, because we said these things, they get settled out however they decide to get settled out. And you just hope that it gets settled out in the right way and that nothing's more serious comes from it, and that he can get back on the ice as soon as possible. But we don't know when that's going to be.
Right. So as you mentioned, the Sabres back-to-back there, Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver, Seattle. So they're on the Western road swing right now, and 6 straight on the road currently. So they won't be back at home until that December 18th game against the Philadelphia Flyers. So we'll have to see if Kesselring does rejoin the team at that point. So we're going to take a quick commercial break on today's show. We're going to come back. We're going to discuss Josh Norris's return, and we've got a statistic that Joe wants to discuss as well from the Sabres D-Corps as well. So stay right here. Be right back on Sabres Semantics right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network.
J&L Flooring is a Niagara-based specialty flooring and design company. They take great pride and provide elite customer service and support. They are a specialty flooring and decor boutique shop with a beautiful showroom, great pricing, and a wide variety and truly unique selection of products. All their products are environmentally friendly and responsibly produced, so you can feel good about your flooring choices. Their goal as a local business is to build authentic relationships based on honesty and integrity that they foster with respect and authenticity. Offering a unique and wide range of quality products presented by a knowledgeable and patient team, they connect with our customers, simplifying the process to make your life easier and to make your home more beautiful. Visit them at 4424 Montrose Road in Niagara Falls, or find out more at jnlflooring.com. If you think you can get a better deal anywhere else, you don't know Jack at J&L Flooring.
Pets bring immense joy to our homes, becoming an integral part of our families. But this living, loving experience often requires a little extra care and attention. That's where Global Pet Foods comes in, with owners and staff ready to support you every step of the way. Check out one of their locations today. 3643 Portage Road in Niagara Falls, 160 Highway 20 in Font Hill, or 400 Scott Street in St. Catharines. Global Pet Foods, where pets are undeniably part of the family. Proud to sponsor the Dog Pound Podcast, the official podcast of the Niagara Ice Dogs.
Are you currently looking for work in the Niagara region? If so, you owe it to yourself to check out the services provided by the Niagara Employment Help Center, located at 6100 Thorold Stone Road in Niagara Falls. Their many free services include a fully staffed resource area open to the public, resume and cover letter writing, local labor market information, job search strategies, assistance with clarifying employment, training, and career goals, employment counseling and job search support, and Better Jobs Ontario information and registration assistance. Check out their website at ehc.on.ca or call 905-358-0021 for more information. The Niagara Employment Help Center, helping people find work since 1983.
This Employment Ontario program is funded by the Government of Ontario. Wild Bill's Auto Repair is your local center for auto maintenance and repair in the Niagara region. Since 2012, Wild Bill's Auto Repair and Body Shop has been helping customers stay safe and confident on the road, knowing their vehicles in top running condition through their services. Located at 7868 Oakwood Drive in Niagara Falls, the garage started as a tribute to the owner's father, William Robert Hunter, who passed away, continuing the same community spirit and high level of service which customers came to expect from him back at Hunter's Auto Repair. Their multi-award-winning auto shop has earned the trust of the Niagara community with its fair treatment of all customers, who can feel confident they'll get the trustworthy advice and repairs during their visit. Their experienced crew loves meeting new people and looks forward to forming a lasting partnership for the care of your cars. To find out more or to book a service, contact them today. 905-358-7868 or wildbillsauto.ca. Wild Bill's Auto Repair, helping customers stay safe and confident on the road since 2012. You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.
Hey, hey, here we go, it's hockey night in Buffalo. Hey, hey, here we go, the boys in blue, white, and gold. Hey, hey, here we go, make some noise, get in the zone. All for one and one for all, let's hear you from your heart and soul. And we will stand, raising our hands, saying, let's go Buffalo, let's go Buffalo.
And welcome back to part 2 of today's Sabres Semantics episode. Brandon Caputo joined alongside Joe Yerdon of Bleacher Report and Noted Hockey, continuing to update us on the Buffalo Sabres from there in Buffalo. Got the pulse on everything down there. Joe Yerdon covering the Sabres for a long time and friend of the show here. Always appreciate him coming on to give us an update on the Sabres. Make sure to give us a follow on X at Sabres Semantics, as well as on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok by searching the Armchair GM Sports Network. Thank you, as always, to those watching us on the video version on YouTube. Make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, smash that bell, and comment as well. We always want to hear the fan interaction as well. And thank you to those that chose to listen to us on your favorite on-demand audio platform. Joe, and again, we're in the holiday season, but you know, I don't know what the Sabres are bringing us this year, if it's going to be good or bad under the tree. You know, we still got a couple of weeks here before Christmas, but you know, Christmas shopping, I haven't done all mine yet, but we could have a whole other podcast on that. But regardless, you know, when you get into these stretches, and I know like the trade freeze happens and everything like that as well, for the National Hockey League and the World Juniors start up, and with it being an Olympic year, the schedule is condensed already as it is. So like, are you looking at sort of this December any differently than you would in a normal year where, you know, teams just, you know, you are what you are in December, and going into the new year is really when you start to know if you're going to be a contender or not? Or do you think right now that we're seeing what teams are going to be good, which teams aren't, and if the Sabres really need to make some drastic moves here, you know, going into, I guess, January of 2026?
I think this season's a little bit different just because the points are so tight for everybody. I mean, even, you know, with Buffalo and Florida being in technically last in the East, 26 right now, you know, you're a heater away from being right there. You know, like the wild card spots are at 33 points. The division 31 gets you to third. And to me, that, you know, the door is open. I mean, 5 points is not easy to make up, especially when, you know, you got 3-point games, you got the whole thing. And I know the whole classic thing about, teams in a playoff spot at American Thanksgiving or, 70 whatever percent make the playoffs, but good luck figuring that out this year because everybody was really close at, just even like a week or so ago. Things are way too tight. So, but I think at this point right now, you're going to start to see teams separate maybe a little bit. And it's kind of bold. It's a little bold to say, given how weird everything's been this season. But I think you want to see some teams start to surge and really take over. I mean, not everybody's going to do what Colorado's doing. I know the Avs are stupidly good this year, but you want to see some teams kind of like surge forward and take control. We've seen like Washington, for me in the East, is a team that hasn't been playing that great, but yet they're, the point totals tell you like they're doing well. Logan Thompson's having a great season. Even still, like, like give up a bunch of goals the other night and you're like, okay, well, maybe they're not that good. But you see how great Tampa's played this year. They're not infallible. Neither's Boston or even Montreal in the Atlantic. And it's just the way the Atlantic set up with Detroit and Ottawa, Toronto. I mean, 5 teams in the bottom 5 in the East are all in the Atlantic, and yet Detroit's technically tied with Montreal. Like they're tied for 3rd. And have they impressed me this year? No. Montreal's been very helter-skelter. Ottawa looks great some nights and then not great the other half of the time. And Toronto's been messy. They've been better lately. Florida is missing two of their top 2 players at least, and then a handful of others. So the opportunity's there for somebody to get hot, bank a bunch of points, and then try to ride through it the rest of the way, play 500 hockey. But I think we're at a point right now where, teams have played a ton of games here the first couple of months, and the schedule gets a lot harder in January and February leading into the Olympic break. And then after that, it's going to be a hardcore sprint to the finish because there's going to be a ton of games after the Olympics and then through March into April. It's going to be nuts. And for anybody who maybe doesn't have a lot of guys going to the Olympics, maybe that break helps them out. Guys get healthy, they get 2 weeks and, sun and fun. That helps out, but you got to get there. Like you got to be close by the time we reach that break. Cause if you're not close by the break, it's going to be really hard to get through it after that.
Right. And as you mentioned, 11 points separate first from last in the conference right now in the East. So
that's a huge gap, mind you. Like 11 doesn't sound like a lot. In the NHL, that's kind of a lot because you got to jump, 10 teams, a ton of teams to be able to get there to do it, which is a bigger problem because you could say like, hey, we've got our points. We did it. Cool. 4 points ahead of you also did the same thing. So you've actually only jumped 3 spots.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to leapfrog all those teams. And that's not an easy thing to do because not all these teams are all going to lose 7 straight games for you to be able to leapfrog them. So again, the Sabres have dug themselves a hole once again, but as you mentioned, there's a lot of hockey left to be played, but again, we've been saying that for a lot of years now, but again, with this condensed schedule, to me, is just an intriguing factor to see how this sprint goes going into that second half of the year with teams trying to stay healthy for a lot of games in a short amount of time. So, Joe, I want to go to something positive. Obviously, the big news this week was the return of Josh Norris, who had only played 18 minutes of the opening game, got injured on a face-off play. And it was really unfortunate because we know what Josh Norris is capable of when he's in the lineup and the reason why Kevin Adams went out and made that trade to trade Dylan Cousins in a 2nd-round pick to get this guy, a former 1st-round pick of the Ottawa Senators in 2017. An incredible first game back for him, I must say. Basically had a hat trick, had the 1 goal changed to an assist. So it was 2 goals and an assist, but 5 points in 4 games. We're going to say 5 points in 3 games because that first game he played 18 minutes and got hurt. So what have you thought of the return of Josh Norris as the number 1 center on this team and sort of where you think that that his biggest strengths are and how the team can, really rally around a guy like this and sort of how he has already injected himself positively into what they've been trying to do?
I think the biggest addition by getting Josh Norris back in this lineup is speed for the top groups, because he is such a great skater. He is a top tier skater, and he's quick, and he plays the game fast too. Like, he reads the game really well, and his all round play is really strong. That speed and his hockey smarts allow him to be a really solid defensive player when called on. But all of that skill and that ability just make him stand out as a guy who can just make a big difference at both ends of the ice. But the area you want to see him have the biggest effect is offensively, and he's been able to do that so far. We've seen him help juice things up a little bit there for the top line. Top line struggled a little bit in Winnipeg, which, if you're dealing with Josh Morrissey every shift, it's going to be a little bit harder. But what you want to see from him though is generate shots, play fast, create. Like, that's what you want to see out of him. And we have seen some of that. How he, and this was a question I posed to Lindy Ruff, I think, when he came back, was how will what Norris does, which Norris is a prolific shooter and he plays fast. How will that work with Tage Thompson, who is a prolific shooter, doesn't play as fast, but like, he's, in the offensive zone, he wants to throw pucks to the net. And Lindy was basically like, well, we'll see how it goes. But he likes the dynamic of how quick Norris can play and set them up. I do wonder if maybe we see a change there with that group against Calgary, or if maybe he's just going to say, like, listen, we got to give this a couple more games and see if this clicks a little bit more. But I think when you've got shooters like Norris and like Thompson, I think ideally you want to have them separate, just so that they have, you only got one puck at a time. So, one guy's going to shoot it, then you got to let him shoot it. But to me, there's no harm in having a couple of guys that just want to pepper the puck in the net, because this team doesn't always throw the puck in the net. So I think anything that adds to it is a good thing. And I've really liked his play. And obviously we're rooting for him to stay healthy, because he's dealt with so much over the last few years with his shoulders. The oblique last year when he came over was a little bit banged up, and that held him to 3 games, I think, last season, 3-4 games last season. So in Buffalo, I should say, not in Ottawa, but you want to see a guy like that succeed, because he's just had so many things that have kept him off the ice, that you want to see him just get back, stay healthy, and then just take over.
And you mentioned it about Tage. Like, obviously we've seen Tage go back to center a little bit this year. Norris right now and Tage playing together, as you mentioned, sort of what is the dynamic there long-term going forward? Like, in your opinion, as we got the forward lines up on the screen for you guys listening in audio, I'll kind of just quickly discuss, would you move Norris or Tage to that second line center role, move McLeod down to the third line center, but then where does that put Ostlund, right? So it's, like right now, like, do you mind having Tage on the right wing with Norris and Benson as that line, see how that continues to work? I know whenever Kulich comes back, he gets into this conversation as well. So do you think that there's really a define how this is going to work right now? Or do you think Lindy Ruff is really just going to take it game by game, depending on who's hot with who? And seeing what works, throw it on the wall and see what lineup sticks. And this is the one that they've got right now.
I think if you're determined to have Norris at center, I think you almost have to put him, either have him be the first or second line center, either one. But I think Thompson's in like a 5-6 game goal drought right now. And, he's a goal scorer. He's going to be streaky, but he was scoring goals at center. And I think I'd want to get him back to center. To get him back, more fully involved in the game. I know it may leave a little something left to be desired defensively with Thompson, but if you've got him at center and he's able to do more and generate more, I think that's a net positive. Defensive stuff aside, maybe you can change who his wingers are to help out defensively. I know they value McLeod's ability to win draws a lot, so you want to keep him at center. This all seems to point towards, maybe Ostlund's a guy who gets kind of pushed down or even out of the lineup, which I don't think they want to do that either. or maybe you put him on the wing where he's never really played before. I mean, Ostlund, size-wise, not great for the wing. But maybe you do something a little funky. Maybe Thompson goes to center and then Norris plays on the wing. And that way, like, situationally, you can use him on the faceoffs and whatnot. But because the draws do mean a lot to this team, and we've seen it cost them a lot of possession time. On in zone draws where it either hurts them defensively or kills them offensively from being able to create something. But that to me might be the way you go about it. I know McLeod and Ostlund kind of switched off on lines against Winnipeg. I think Ostlund was playing a little bit with Quinn and Zucker, and then he was with Doan and Tuck, and then vice versa. But to me, I think I think the first thing you do is just switch Thompson and Norris and see the way that works, because they've had Norris playing on the flank on the power play over in the circle, and I think that's the right spot for him. But yeah, it's a nice problem to have, but unfortunately, they're at a spot in the standings where they can't really fritter around and try to figure it out over the course of a few games.
And you mentioned the power play. What have you seen from that unit right now? It's Doan, Norris, Zucker with Dahlin and Tage Thompson. But again, whether that sticks or not, even at tomorrow's practice, we'll see. But what have you seen there? And have you seen Norris make a positive impact on that power play unit as well, not just 5-on-5?
Yeah, I think Norris is a net positive on the power play because he gives them gives the opposing PK somebody else to mind in that circle to shoot. When we've seen Ryan McLeod in that spot sometimes, and he's there sometimes in the second unit, they don't respect that shot. There's certain guys whose shot you're like, we got to be mindful of that. Norris is a guy you have to respect because he can rip it. He can put it past goalies from there. When it's Zach Benson, it's a little bit more, you're worried about him crashing the net and getting in there, mucking things up a little bit. But that's where you've got a guy like Zucker in the bumper spot where, he can tip pucks, he can shoot from there. And then also he's digging in and around the net. When the puck's in close, he's going to jump right in on it with Doan to try to create goals that way. To me, that's having Zucker and Doan there is really good. Obviously Dahlin up top is solid, and Thompson at the opposite circle that's where he's going to be. Unfortunately, that makes it a little easier for PKs to shadow because Dahlin and Thompson will shoot. So guys are going to come out and get after them. But that's where having Norris on the other side makes things a little bit more anxious for opposing teams because, you've only got 4. And if you're going to double up on somebody else is going to get open. And if it's Norris, he's going to rip it. So to me, if you've got shooters on both sides, it's good. But I think the biggest thing for the Sabres power play is to keep moving because once they get static, it's so easy to camp out on everybody and prevent shots from getting to the net.
Yeah, and we've kind of seen that the last 2 games against Philadelphia and Winnipeg, although they did score a goal on the power play in the Winnipeg game. But just, again, when they take a step forward in that game against Winnipeg back at home, and then the last 2 games you've seen is just, it leaves a sour taste because you see the positive with Norris coming back and how much that injected some life into the lineup. And then now, you've seen it kind of just fizzle out the last couple of games, and you hope that is not a trend going in the wrong direction.
Yeah. And unfortunately the road record kind of belies that because it's, they've shown that on the road, whether it's they're not getting the matchups they want or whatever, it's a problem. Although the matchups thing, that's only on face-offs. Flow of play, get your guys on and off and try to make things work. It's not like you're prevented from
Right.
switching guys out when you want. Although we've seen the last couple of games, line changes have not looked easy for this team because they've gotten caught with their pants down a couple of times and it's caused problems.
Yeah, and Lindy obviously can't be happy about those things. Very animated on the bench, as you could see. Yeah. He's not going to accept those things. So again, that's something that they're going to have to work on in practice. Line changes. Crazy to think about at the National Hockey League level. But the last thing we want to touch on today, Joe, because you wanted to bring it up on today's show, I'm going to pull it up on the video version for you guys watching. But for you listening, just pulling up a quick statistic Joe wants to go over here. Goals against per 60 minutes for the Sabres decor.
Yeah, this was something that I've been keeping an eye on this year, and it's because Owen Power is such a guy that gets hyper fixated on by the fans because they say, what's this guy doing out here? Why isn't he playing like Dahlin? He doesn't look like a number 1 draft pick, this whole thing. And he's really good. I know it doesn't come out in the points. It doesn't show up in whatever you're trying to do, but these, the goals against per 60, this is at 5-on-5, mind you, which they've been good at 5-on-5. Owen Power is their best defender, and Dahlin is not far behind him, which is not a surprise with Dahlin because he's all world good. But seeing Power right there with him, and Samuelsson as well. Let's not get it twisted. Samuelsson and Dahlin as a pair, that's virtually a shutdown pair, which is kind of wild for fans that have been watching for a while and waiting for Matthias Samuelsson to maybe take a step. He's taken a massive step this year, but Owen Power's been doing outstanding, and he's been kind of a guy that's a guy kind of without a partner this year because he was playing with Connor Timmins for a little bit. That pairing did not work. And now he's been with Jacob Bryson, now with Kesselring out of action. We were meant to see Power and Kesselring together like from the get-go, and we finally saw them get together, and then Kesselring got injured. And it was like, well, all right, well, that stinks. but now you're seeing him with Bryson, and that's been pretty solid. For a guy that's, for a pairing that's a couple of lefties, Power's been awesome. And, Byram and Timmins, they're high event hockey. And unfortunately, the opposite, the bad side of high event hockey is you're giving up a lot of chances, and in their case, a lot of goals. Nearly 4 a game in Timmins' case, I guess in Byram's case too. 3.79 for Byram, 3.96 for Timmins. That's not getting it done. Now, mind you, the goals for is nearly 3 for both of them, which is outstanding. Byram's had a great offensive season. Defensively, however, that pairing's been taking a hit, and you've seen it the last few. If you watch the road games, you can tell teams have done their scouting because they see numbers like this by Byram and Timmins, and you see the matchups change very quickly. Minnesota game, every time Byram and Timmins hit the ice, Kaprizov's line was out there. Against Winnipeg, Scheifele and Connor and those guys and Velarde were out on the ice against them right away. And that's an issue that's very difficult to solve because you could try to break that up. You could try to do Power and Timmins again and see if that works, even though it didn't work. I don't know how you fix that until Kesselring gets back. Then maybe you kind of jumble things around with those other 2 pairs. But this is an obvious spot for other teams to try to go after, and it's up to those guys. It's up to Timmins and Byram to try to stand up and be stouter defensively. I know people are going to pick on the goaltending and say, well, goalies can make a stop too. Yes, I know. But it's up to those guys to do their part as well to try to shut things down and prevent more shot attempts against things like that where you kind of take it for granted and, it gets lost in the mix because, it's one where if those guys aren't giving up a lot of shot attempts and the goals are still coming, then it's, tie them up, high danger, all this other stuff where it's like, all right, guys, come on. Like, let's get this figured out because Timmins and Byram, high danger goals against per 60, not good. Like 2.6 for Timmins, 2.3 for Byram. Like that's not good. Whereas, Samuelsson and Dahlin are like 1.4, 1.5 in that neighborhood. Same for Powers at 1.46. These are like the microaggressions, like things you're not even really paying attention to unless you're like, well, there are those guys out there again for a goal against. Unless you're noticing that kind of stuff, which I think at this point a lot of fans maybe are, but you want to see that pair get stouter, get tougher, and try to figure out a way to get those goals against numbers down when they're out on the ice. Because right now, other teams are attacking them like crazy.
And clearly they're doing their due diligence with their scouting. I don't think it's something that is just a coincidence that Minnesota and Winnipeg throw out their top line when they see the Byram and Timmins pairing come out, and then they just get their teeth kicked in.
And it's, you look at like the high danger chances against, and this is stuff that's in close to the net. When I say high danger, these are, within like 20, 30 feet of the net. I forget what the official range is for this, but you're talking like 13.5 against Byram, 12.4 against Timmins. Dahlin and Power, like it's 10-9 for those guys. And, Bryson and Samuelson, it's, 9 to just barely above 9 for Samuelson. Like clearing the front of your net, getting guys out of there, sweeping pucks away, even just something simple like that. Sweep the pucks away from the front of that, get it out of the way, get it out of trouble. And that can make your life a lot easier. But right now, that pairing, based on the numbers and based on some of what you can see with your own eyes, they're not really doing a great job of that.
Yeah, and for the Owen Power pitchfork people out there that want to, just hate on the guy, the way that the guy plays. I mean, as you see, for you guys listening in audio, only 2.4 goals against per 60, 5-on-5. He leads the Sabres in that with the lowest percentage. Second, Dahlin 2.54, Samuelson 2.55, Bryson 3.01, Kesselring 3.28, Byram 3.79, as we've discussed, and Connor Timmins 3.96. So a microcosm of sort of the things that you're talking about and the concern with the certain pairings there, Joe.
Yeah, and if you want to say, all right, well, where's the points when it comes to Power? Well, scoring chances 4%. He has the best on the team, 56.2. And, Samuelson and Dahlin are right behind him. And, it just means, I don't know if it's bad luck or if it's, what have you, that he doesn't have the points that necessarily go along with that, or he certainly doesn't get the goals because Owen Power needs to shoot more, period. But when he's on the ice, the team gets stuff done when Owen's out there, whether it's keeping the other team off the board or if it's helping his team score points. He's helping do it. I get it. Like he's not as flashy and fun to watch as a Dahlin is. He's not delivering some kind of, he's not stirring stuff up the way Dahlin does. He's not boarding Trevor Zegras in the corner the way Rasmus Dahlin does, but he's just quietly does his job. And I don't know, as a guy who can appreciate somebody who just quietly does what they're supposed to do, I appreciate Power for that, but I understand why he's an easy target for fans because it doesn't show up in the highlights. If you make a nice first pass or if you shut down a play at the blue line, it's not making the highlight reel. It's definitely not making the highlight reel, but this is what he does. And he just does it very quietly and takes care of business. Now it's just, you got to hope Michael Kesselring, when he gets back, that's the pairing and that becomes your number 2 pairing, because that could solve a lot of problems. If you're able to kind of cut down the minutes that Byram and Timmins are playing, because they're playing a lot of minutes because they are technically generating goals because, Byram's been scoring goals. So there's that. But if you can cut down on their minutes and make it harder for teams on the road, when the Sabres are on the road, to get those matchups that they want, because you're playing the other 2 pairings like 22 minutes a night, you're winning half the battle at that point, because if you're cutting down the ice time for the opposing team's best players because they only want those matchups, well, okay, fine, you can play that way if you want, but we're going to win.
Interesting statistic there, Joe, and I'm really glad you brought that up because I found that intriguing when you had told me you wanted that for the show. So really good insight on that there, and definitely something that the people can look at and make a determination on the D pairs that maybe are playing a little bit better and the ones that maybe need a little bit of improvement there. So again, as we wrap up, like the Sabres have not won a regulation game on the road since April 1st, Joe. I'll leave you with this as we wrap up. Will they get one in the next 4 games?
I'm gonna be bold. I'm gonna say yes. It's weird to say that's bold, but I think they're going to. Because if they don't, they're in big trouble. I mean, you can give up points to teams in the West. That's fine. But sometimes you just need to get 2 of your own. Get 2 for yourself, none for anybody else. That's what you got to do. And I think that Calgary game was such a stinker. I think they're going to come back and really get after them. Calgary's played much better ever since that game. Let's not get that twisted. They've played some much better hockey since then, which the advanced numbers kind of pointed towards there's got to be a regression for these guys at some point, right? And it just happened to be that night against Buffalo where all the shots that weren't going in all season were going in. But I think they'll be much better against Calgary. I think Vancouver's a game. that's a game they can have. Vancouver's been such a mess this year, and even the game they played last night against Utah on Saturday or Friday night, excuse me. Vancouver played great, still lost 4-1. So these things happen, and I think Vancouver's kind of going through it the same way Buffalo is. Not the same way, but expansion brothers are kind of dealing with it the same way.
Yeah, to me, I look at Calgary, Calgary, Vancouver, and Seattle are, to me, winnable games for the Sabres. And again, I think even Edmonton, you never know what goaltending is going to show up for them as well. So all 4 of these games could technically be victories. The Sabres beat Edmonton earlier this year back at home. So we'll see. I mean, I usually like watching them on this Western Canadian road trip plus Seattle. It's always an interesting trip to see how they do. But again, you definitely don't want to see them coming home with no wins in this 6-game road trip, because they've already started off 0-2. And when they get back home for that home game against the Flyers, oh boy, will they be on the hot seat if that happens. So
fans will be out for blood if they come back from this road trip without a point, or if they come back, well, even if they come back with 1 point, it'll be ugly. It will be very ugly. And that Seattle game, has Buffalo beaten Seattle yet in Seattle's history? And now Lane Lambert's the head coach of Seattle. That style of game kills the Sabres. that kind of choking defensive, old style, not quite trap, but let's just call it the trap for modern days talk style of hockey. Sabres hate playing against teams like that. So I don't like how that one sets up. So they better get it done against Calgary, Edmonton, and Vancouver.
For sure. So Joe Yerdon, as always, from Noted Hockey and Bleacher Report. Joe, thanks a lot for coming on. I don't know if you're going to be back before, unless something drastic happens or a massive trade happens or they don't win a game up until Christmas. But always appreciate you, and happy holidays to you. And hopefully, so you get something good under your Christmas tree this year if you've been good down there at the rink.
Well, you too, Brandon. I know you're working hard there on the junior side, and keeping an eye on the Sabres here too. So let's hope Santa Claus or anybody else that's handing out presents is kind.
Yeah, no Atlanta Falcons coal for me this year. But regardless of that,
enough.
I've seen too much of that over the years. And anyways, I don't want to end on a negative, so I don't want to talk about them. So that's going to be it for this episode of Sabres Semantics right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Thank you again to those that tuned in on our video version on YouTube. Make sure to hit subscribe, and smash that bell. And thank you to everybody that tuned in on your favorite on-demand audio platform. So for my guest, Joe Yerdon, my name is Brandon Caputo. That's it for another episode on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Talk to you again very soon. You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.